I want to get on transit. I want to do what they're doing. We're gonna just gather up a bunch of people and stop the buses and demand that they get lip solid. Up until then, there was a lot of institutionalization, a lot of isolation. No access, you can't go, can't do anything. But as it gradually got accessible and people started talking to each other and finding the similarities in the advocacy needs, it built up into a mission that has really helped the community.
Welcome back to our series, Raise Your Voice, Succeeding Through Self-Advocacy. My name is Katie, and I'm a certified therapeutic recreation specialist, and I'll be your host for this segment, where we'll be exploring the challenges and obstacles faced by those with paralysis when it comes to transportation and offering practical solutions and tips for overcoming them.
I believe that human connection is essential to human health, healthy mental health, I should say. And everyone should have the opportunity to get up and get out, even if you don't have a vehicle of your own. But being in an area where you're close enough to public transportation, I think is essential. And I think our transit authority needs to make sure that there is at least some type of access to a bus stop.
As a person with a disability, you have the right to access public transportation under the Americans with Disabilities Act, also known as the ADA. This includes the right to use the same mode of transportation and the same services as people without disabilities, including buses, trains, and other forms of public transportation. Use accessible vehicles or equipment such as buses with lifts or ramps, or trains with designated accessible seating areas. Use any necessary assistive devices such as canes, crutches, or wheelchairs on public transportation. Receive assistance with boarding, disembarking, and making connections if necessary. When planning your public transportation as someone living with paralysis, it's important to consider these things. Research the accessibility of the transportation system you will be using. Check if there are designated accessible seating areas or priority seating for people with disabilities. Consider the ease of boarding and disembarking at different stops and stations. If you use a wheelchair, consider the size and weight of your chair and whether it can easily be folded and stored on the vehicle. Plan your route and allow extra time for necessary transfers or layovers. Pack any necessary medical supplies. Consider bringing a personal assistant or caregiver to assist you. If accessing public transportation feels daunting, check if your local transit offers training to help individuals navigate their system. Additionally, explore local paratransit options. Paratransit provides individualized rides without fixed routes or timetables.
I did not become a wheelchair user until I was 27. So up until then, I was driving, my car at a particular time. I know about the public transit system anyway. My father was a bus driver for over 33 years. So I know how to get around the city and things like that. But when we become of age and we're driving and whatnot, of course, that's what we would always like to do. And losing access to a car was so hard for me. But I was determined to be able to not only get back behind the wheel, because for me, that was a sense of independence. I didn't have to depend on public transportation. I did not have to depend on anybody coming to pick me up in regards to paratransit. My schedule would be my own. And that, to me, was independence.
Driving can be one of the most difficult and challenging aspects of transportation. It's important to discuss your specific situation with your doctor and a certified driving instructor, or a CDRS, which is a certified driving rehabilitation specialist, before returning to driving. As a person with a disability, you have the right to drive if you're capable and should expect fairness throughout the licensing process. This means you're entitled to take necessary tests and assessments to gauge your ability to safely operate a motor vehicle with or without adaptive equipment. Request specific accommodations for the driving test, like additional time for the written portion or the allowance of adaptive equipment. Ensure your driving aptitude is fairly assessed rather than being outright denied a license due to your disability. Remember, licensing rules vary by state, influenced by your specific disability and the type of vehicle you aim to drive. To get a grasp on the rules in your region, reach out to your local DMV, licensing agency, or check with a local CDRS. 2 more things to consider. First, you have the right to leave your home and have your personal care assistant drive you to destinations as initially agreed upon in their job description. Make sure to set this expectation clearly with your caregiver. Second, it's good to have contacts in your local community who have wheelchair-accessible transportation that you can call in case of an emergency.
One thing that I saw that we fought hard about was a particular corner in Austin that had steps. And we said, well, that's going to change. And you'd think it would be easy. No. They call it the $2 million ramp. And I said, come on, that's not $2 million. Well, unbeknownst to me, they had to redesign all the plumbing, the water, the utilities, and it took an act of financial genius to get those ramps made, but to make them inclusive and, pretty.
As a person with a disability, navigating your community can present a number of obstacles, but you have the right to use sidewalks and pedestrian facilities. This means you have the right to use sidewalks, crosswalks, and pedestrian facilities that are accessible and free from barriers. You also have the right to request accommodations such as a curb ramp or audible pedestrian signals to make pedestrian facilities more accessible for you. Additionally, you have the right to use assistive devices such as a wheelchair or a cane to help you navigate pedestrian facilities. It is important to remember that you have the right to receive equal treatment and access pedestrian facilities, regardless of your disability.
I had to stop the airport workers from moving me because I was not safely buckled in at all. And had I not been able to speak up for myself, I would have fallen and I would have gotten either re-injured or, something worse. So, I knew something was wrong in my gut and how I was feeling. And it, I had to step up right then and there. Otherwise, it could have been, disastrous for me.
As a person living with paralysis, you have the right to reasonable accommodations from airlines to ensure that you can travel safely and comfortably. Here are some questions you may want to ask the airline before flying. What accommodations are available for travelers with disabilities? Can I request a seat with extra legroom or a bulkhead seat? How can I request an adjoining seat for a companion providing care? How can I arrange for a wheelchair or other assistive device to be provided at the airport? Will someone be available to assist me with boarding, disembarking, and making connections? Can I bring my assistive device on the plane? Where will my wheelchair go and how will it be stored? How can I request an onboard aisle chair for the flight? Are there any specific instructions or requirements for travelers with disabilities at the airport or on the plane?
The way they treat our chairs sometimes is just horrible. I've got my chair broke a few times, actually, because the people that from the air traffic control would sit in it and try to drive it. I mean, I'm glad the last trip that I took was last month. I went to Disneyland, California. Then I went to Texas, Dallas. But I had to wrap my wheelchair in my joystick and saran wrap and say, don't touch it. It's my legs. Put a sign there so they know not to drive it. And they know that I feel like when they put the chairs in the bottom of the plane, they need to put them sitting upright instead of putting them sideways, because that breaks the chair.
Your rights are protected by the Air Carriers Access Act, which prohibits discrimination by airlines based on disability. Still, if you're traveling with a wheelchair, there are various proactive ways that you can protect your mobility device. Take your wheelchair and any medical equipment you need in the airport with you to the gate and all the way down to the door. Add brightly colored tags with medical written on them to your wheelchair and all medical equipment. Include your name and phone number on this tag. Remove any parts of your wheelchair that can easily come off, such as the control hub, joystick, arm and leg rest, wheelchair cushion, and headrest, as they may get damaged. Place them in a separate bag and carry them with you on the plane. Print instructions on how to move your wheelchair, laminate them, and secure them to your wheelchair. Clearly explain to cargo attendants how to move the chair. If using a motorized wheelchair, make sure your wheelchair stays upright in the cargo hold, not laid on its side. Confirm and reconfirm that your wheelchair is on the plane before takeoff. At any point during your airline experience, if you encounter an issue, you can request to speak to a CRO or a complaint resolution officer or official. They are trained in disability-related travel issues. If you have any further issues obtaining the accommodations you need, you can file a complaint with the Department of Transportation. Remember, you are your own best advocate. Don't hesitate to speak up if you feel it's warranted. With the right preparation and knowledge, you can travel with confidence.
For more information, be sure to download the resources for this video series.